All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Jenny Sawyer from the Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority. I'd like to welcome you all to this installment of the OAA Abatement Academy. The Abatement Academy is a series of webinars that present best practices in opioid and substance use abatement strategies, and they highlight efforts being funded with opioid settlement funds in Virginia. Our speakers generously give their time and expertise to present these sessions. Like all Abatement Academy webinars, today's session is being recorded. Both the recording and the presentation will be uploaded to the OAA website, and an email will be sent providing a link to those materials to everyone that's registered today. If you have any questions or comments, please type them in the Q&A box. As moderator, I'll screen the questions and pose them to the presenters during the session or near the end. So, today's presentation will focus on Isaiah 117 House. This nonprofit organization partners with communities to provide an immediate, protective, and supportive environment for kids who need housing when separated from their families for safety reasons. The OAA has determined that support for Isaiah 117 House is an approved use of opioid settlement funding because kids who benefit from these programs are less likely to experience the adverse events and trauma that are associated with family separation, and that the program provides protective factors that are associated with family separation. That support these children, sorry. These protective factors in turn reduce the likelihood of these kids developing their own substance use challenges as they age through and out of the foster care system. Today, we have 4 presenters. First, we welcome Terry Wecker, who currently serves as the location leader for the Isaiah 117 House in Lynchburg, Virginia. Before joining the staff and transitioning into her current role as support coordinator in March of 2024, she had been volunteering with Isaiah 117 House since 2023. As a foster and adoptive mom, Terry has seen firsthand what removal day looks like for a child who doesn't have the benefit of an Isaiah House, and she believes the house is truly changing the way foster care begins in her community. Prior to joining Isaiah 117 House, Terry spent 17 years as a law enforcement officer and 10 years in event planning. Next, we welcome Jenny Butcher, who has been the location leader for 1 year for Isaiah 117 House in Rockingham County, Virginia. She started as a local supporter in July of 2024 by helping with a lemonade stand. Jenny has had a passion for foster care since childhood, which has continued into her adult years. Previously, she served as a deputy clerk for the Harrison-Rockingham Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court, where she focused on foster care cases, aiming to gain more knowledge and support for children in her community. Next, we welcome Acacia Nunley, who has been the location leader for Isaiah 117 House in Russell County, Virginia for 1 year. She began serving as a volunteer expansion coordinator in January of 2024. She spent her teen years in kinship care with her grandparents and wants to be there for children in her community that are experiencing similar circumstances. Finally, we welcome Savannah Harrison, who has served as a location leader for Isaiah 117 House in Washington County, Virginia, since January of 2024. Her path to advocacy began in early 2023 when she first stepped foot into Isaiah 117 House with no prior knowledge of the foster care system. What started as a personal effort to battle depression by means of volunteer work has now created a passion for supporting children entering foster care. With those introductions, I will now turn the floor over to Acacia Nunley to begin the session.
Thank you so much for those introductions. We really appreciate it. We're excited to be here today and welcome everyone to this presentation of Isaiah 117 House. We're very excited to join you all, and we wanted to start with a video from our founder and executive director, Rhonda Paulson. Rhonda is located in East Tennessee, and she tells her story better than I can. So this is a little eclipse version of that, where you can get a full, a general understanding of how the ministry came to life.
In 2014, I knew nothing about foster care. I didn't know what DCS stood for. I didn't know anything about the plight of the children as they enter the system. All I knew is that I was supposed to adopt. Week 7 of that foster care training, they had us meet in the Department of Children's Services. And we were sitting in a conference room, and there were no windows. And the gentleman leading the class said, when a child is removed from their home, they come here. And I looked around this room that was far from inviting, and I thought, surely he's wrong. And so I raised my hand and I said, I'm sorry, sir, but when you mean a child comes here, what do you actually mean? And he said, a little girl slept in this room last night. And in that moment, God said, these are my children, Rhonda. What are you going to do? How do you bring a child into your home? You can't halfway love a child. You're going to love them 100%. And even though you don't know that's in you, it is. And then the court call and say, they have to go back. That scared us to death. But I never will forget the moment that we both were like, it's not about us. This might not turn out the way we want it to turn out at all, but Isaiah still needs a mama today. And Isaiah still needs a daddy today. We had this moment, and God showed up with joy, and God showed up and blessed our efforts, because that's what he's calling all of us to do, is get outside ourselves and get outside our fears. And when we do, when we stand in that place of unknown, that's where he is. And that's what we found through foster care. Every aspect of this community got behind and got excited about what if there was a home. So when we headed out into Carter County with this dream of what if there was a house, a few things happened. I got my first ever Facebook page. I'd never been on the Facebook. So we started posting and sharing, and people started liking and sharing, and all of a sudden there was like this social media craze right here in our little Carter County bubble. And then we decided to sell some t-shirts. We had 100 orders in 30 minutes. And I probably believed somewhere that this was a one-time, wow, Carter County, what a cool place to live. And then Greene County did the same thing. And then Washington County did. And then Sullivan County did it. And now Blunt's doing it. And Rutherford and Knox. It's like once the community is aware that not in some far off land, not somebody else's children, the children of your community feel unloved and feel that there's no hope. And once the community is made aware, the entire community gets behind it. As we move forward, our mission stays the same. No child sits in a cubicle or a conference room. No child feels alone or hopeless on that day of removal. That is our mission. And it started as a mission for no child in Carter County. It's turned into a mission of no child throughout the state of Tennessee. And if I'm honest, and it scares me, it's a mission of no child anywhere.
So we want to thank Jenny for those great introductions that she gave us, and we want to take some time to introduce you to each of our individual locations. There are 5 locations in Virginia right now. 3 of us are in construction, 1 is an open home, and 1 just kicked off. So we're going to tell you a little bit more about each location and show you some pictures. So you can go to the next slide.
So we are the open home in Lynchburg, Virginia. We were the very first open home in the state of Virginia. We are unique in that we renovated a historic home, which is not the norm. Most of them are new construction. But we also purchased this house during the rise of the market in 2021. But since we opened our doors in July of 2023, we have served over 200 kids in our home, actually as guests. And then we have packed bags for over 330 children who are entering foster care. You can go to the next slide.
So again, I'm Jenny Butcher. I serve as the Rockingham location leader. Right now, we have started raising awareness and sharing the story of Isaiah 117 House in March of 2024. We were able to purchase this property, about half an acre out in the Rockingham area, back in April of 2025. We had groundbreaking in July, and we are in our construction phase. As you can see, our house is up and moving really fast. We have windows and doors put in yesterday and a roof put in this week. So we're aiming to have this house open and ready for occupancy in April of next year. And you can move to the next slide.
So I'm Acacia Nunley with Russell County, Virginia, and I'm the location leader here. We started our process back in January of 2024. Our prayer team went to the resource center. We kicked off in April of 2024, broke ground in December of 2024, and then started construction. We are currently in the end game of construction, I would say, which can be a couple of months to several months. It just depends on how everything falls into place. But things are moving really well right now. We were getting some pavement quotes yesterday. Our HVAC is scheduled to go in November, and then we'll start working on those final touches. And we actually received an Opioid Abatement Authority grant that helped us with our first year of operations and our construction. So that's been a huge blessing. We are a poor community. We don't have a ton of resources. So the fact that we have the Opioid Abatement Authority grant was such a huge blessing to us when we're already a bit under-resourced. So you can see our volunteer team here, some of the people and children that are involved in helping us make this home a reality for our county. And we're just so grateful for where we're at.
Good morning. My name is Savannah Harrison. I am the location leader for the Washington County, Virginia house. Our house kicked off its awareness raising status in October of 2022. We've had a little bit lengthier of a journey than Acacia and Jenny have, but we have been blessed many steps along the way. As you can see, our house is pretty well under construction. There are a couple pieces that have been done that you can't see there. The cinder block has been covered with some stone. There's a lot going on inside. So we're at a point where we're feeling really comfortable with our movement and hope to be prepared to open by the end of the year, very beginning of next year. You can see some of our incredible volunteers. We've got a sweet little OC over here writing a verse on the wall for our holy graffiti. And then there's one of our DSS offices, Washington County, hosting a lemonade stand for us over the summer. So we've had a really great time doing all of that. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. And Brandy is not here to introduce herself. She is our volunteer expansion coordinator for Scott Lee and Norton County Isaiah 117 house. They just had their kickoff in early September. They're going to be raising awareness until March, and I have no doubt that they're going to get the show on the road really, really quickly. And I'm excited to see the movement for them. And you can go on to the next slide.
So one thing we always talk about is what is the why, in the sense of why do we say yes to the Isaiah 117 house? And when we were introduced by Jenny, she kind of gave a little snippet of our whys and why we said yes to Isaiah 117 house. Mine is a more personal, hits me right in my heart as I was a former foster child. And so growing up in the foster care system at age 2, being removed at age 7, and then being removed again at age 14, it's a day that's never forgotten. And my last removal day, this will tell you my age, but my last removal day was about 16 years ago. And I can remember that day like it was yesterday. And I remember the feelings and the moment that moment happened that I will never ever forget, and it still gets me every springtime was my last removal day, and every springtime it really hits me at home. And so it's a day that child never forgets, and I know this is something that I don't ever want a child to experience in the future. And the hope of learning about Isaiah 117 house, I just kept seeing the word hope, and I kept seeing just hope in general. And it's one of those where instead children, when they're being removed, instead of going to that office, they get to go to a home and they can feel a moment of love, and they can see hope, and they can see a future for themselves. And unfortunately, as a former foster child, I didn't have that feeling at that age because of the settings I was in. And so learning about Isaiah 117 house, I knew this was something that was so much more than just a home for our children. And so, as you may know or you may not know, when a child is removed from their home, they must await placement at the Department of Social Services. And that can look like a few hours to a few days, where placement isn't found and they have nowhere to sleep or bathe other than that office. And so they're often hungry and dirty and exhausted, and they have little to no possessions during that time. So you can move on to the next slide. So what if there was a home? You can, yep. So the Isaiah 117 house, we have a mission, and that mission is to reduce trauma, to lighten the load, and to ease the transition. And we can go further into what those look like for the Isaiah 117 house. So reduced trauma looks like creating a safe and loving environment with certified volunteers to provide meals, bathe, clothing, while a child is awaiting placement. We have that home. That's what it is. It's a home. It's not an office. It's not a facility. It's a home. Imagine going to your own home this evening and you get to go take a nice hot bath or hot shower. You're having a meal at a dinner table, and you get to go sit on the couch in your cozy blankets and watch your favorite show or read your favorite book. That is what we are here trying to do for the Isaiah 117 house for our children. That is how we help to reduce that trauma. Instead of them going to an office setting and them wondering, what did I do wrong? Why is this happening to me? Instead, they get to go to a house, and instead of thinking those thoughts, we have caregivers who are there to just love on them, to help make a meal for them, to give them a bath, pack clothes, while they're waiting for that placement, instead of feeling those thoughts in their heads. We help lighten the load for our caseworkers. We create a fully equipped working environment for our DSS caseworkers and provide them with loving emotional support for our DSS workers. So what that looks like is we do have an office in the house, where if they need to make more private phone calls or do something, where the child doesn't need to be around for that, they have an office in the house where they can go to and make those phone calls and make those decisions where a child isn't near them and a child needs to hear those conversations. But then we also get to love on our caseworkers by providing them with emotional support. So on the 17th of every month, we have volunteers and ourselves who go out to the Department of Social Services office, and we get to bring them lunch, or we get to bring them goodies, and we just get to be there and talk to them and get to know them. But when a house is built, and the Lynchburg house does an amazing job at it, they have a coffee area for our caseworkers to go, and we want to make sure they're eating lunch, and we want to make sure that they're taken care of. So we get to provide those needs for them and help lighten that load. We get to give the children a bath instead of our caseworkers having to worry about that, and picking the lice out of a child's hair instead of our caseworkers having to worry about that as well. And then the next thing we get to do is we get to ease that transition for our foster families. So we get to support them and the children by supplying them with a week of new outfits, twin beds, car seats, formula, diapers, meals, anything you think a kid or family would need in that moment when they come with nothing, we get to provide those items. And it just makes it a lot easier for our foster families to say yes. And as I still speak to my previous foster family, and I always wanted to get their perspective of what it was like in that moment. So working with the Isaiah 117 house, I was able to have those conversations with them. And one thing they said, they were unsure of what was going to happen in that moment. They said yes to 3 teenage girls, and they had 3 little boys of their own. So we became an instant family of 8, and they had no beds for us. I slept on a futon for a month. My siblings shared a bed. They had to go out that evening and shop for clothes for 3 teenage girls, hygiene products. And one thing I always want to mention is I didn't know much about my hygiene. I'm good now, but at that age, I didn't know how to take care of myself. And so my foster parents in that moment had to learn how to help teenage girls and what they needed. And then they had to buy groceries for a family of 8 now. And we hadn't eaten that evening, and they had to go out and get food. So it was a very busy night where we weren't able to stay at that house when we were dropped off, and we had to run out and go do all these things, and then we had to go home and go to sleep, and that we didn't know what was going to happen the next day, and we didn't really get to bond or connect with that family right away in that one moment. So helping them ease that transition by providing the needs of clothes, beds, car seats, dinner that evening. That means that child or children go to their home and they sit there and they get to really fully bond with that family and get to know them and spend that time with them, just to make that just a little bit easier so they don't feel like they have to run around and do A, B, and C all the time.
You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So just to talk a little bit more specifically about numbers, Isaiah 117 house itself was established in 2017 by Rhonda and Corey Paulson. The first house opened in Carter County, Tennessee in 2018. Since then, we have grown to be an organization with 60 locations, 37 of which are open homes, and we occupy space across 13 states, and those numbers are only going to continue to grow. Since opening, our organization has cared for over 10,000 children in home. Just to provide a little bit of perspective, over 4,000 of those Red Door guests were from last year alone, and we had an additional 3,200 that were served in office, be it by an open home or a home that's under construction. You can go ahead and go to the next one. So our scope of service, you heard a lot of it from Jenny, but our driving force is, of course, to provide support on the day of removal. We focus on what we call lavish love. We welcome each kiddo into our home with the open arms of our house staff and our volunteers. We do our very best to move with compassion, ensuring that each child feels the love and the care that the house is meant to offer. We provide each kiddo with about a week's worth of brand new clothing, along with hygiene essentials, toys, shoes, books, school supplies, etc. Another area of support is geared toward our foster families. We work to ease that transition, of course, eliminating those hectic last-minute runs to Walmart to get the clothes and to get the toothbrush. But we also offer assistance with tangible needs. The goal is to make that yes easier for them. So we provide beds, car seats, you name it. Our third focal point is one of my favorites. It revolves entirely around our foster care and CPS workers who live in the trenches of removal day right along with our kids. We show appreciation for the hard work they do with monthly gifts, and we make sure that our house is stocked with all of their favorite things too, just extending the practice of lavish love right on to them. You can go on to the next one. So these are bad numbers. There are currently 5,711 children in foster care in Virginia. According to America's Kids Belong, within 2 years of aging out of foster care, 81% of those children will be incarcerated, homeless, addicted, or dead. This is something that I think is startling. According to state averages, 32.38% of removals happen due to parental substance abuse, with 3.52% happening due to children's substance abuse. In my area, according to our social workers, 85 to 95% of removals are due to substance abuse. So just to kind of lay that in numbers that aren't percentages, we currently have 187 children in care between the 3 counties that we serve, which are Washington County, Smith County, and the city of Bristol. If we go based on 85% at least, that means that 158 of those children have been removed due to some kind of substance abuse. And that leaves a paltry 29 children that have been removed because of some other reason. And these statistics don't include alternate living arrangements in which a formal removal has not taken place, such as kiddos moving in with their grandmas and grandpas. And even though every case is not directly affected by opioid addiction, it is an overarching contributing factor in the foster care system, and more cases than we know about are touched by it. You can go on to the next one. So our home design is always thoughtfully and intentionally done. Everything about this home is child friendly. It's safe, it's warm, it's comforting. It gives the air of love, which is of course what we seek out. The bedroom layouts are, we each have 2 bedrooms in our homes, and each bedroom has 2 beds. We'll have rollaway trundles underneath. We'll also have a giant, comfortable pull-out sofa in the living room. And again, in the visitation space, which is another way that we serve our social workers and DSS offices, that visitation space provides the opportunity for biological parents to come and visit with their children in a home-like environment, as opposed to being at an office or a McDonald's at a park. The visitation/reunification space is set up a little bit like a studio apartment. It's got a little kitchenette, so kiddos and their parents can bake cookies. There's a full bathroom. We'll have games, all kinds of fun stuff. My favorite space in the house is the giving room. For us, that is going to encompass the entire second story of our house, and it is massive. In that space, we will house all brand new clothing for ages 0 to 18, boys and girls. And that's one of the first things that we do when we'll get a kiddo in, is we take them upstairs and we let them go shopping. The house also has, as they had mentioned, an office space for our employees and for our social workers. That provides the opportunity, of course, to make those private phone calls. I think one of my least favorite things about the way that the system is designed and set up right now is that a lot of the times these kiddos are in the same office as their social worker, while that social worker is making phone call after phone call after phone call, trying to find placement. So this gives us the opportunity to kind of eradicate that and avoid it to the best of our ability. And you move on to the next one. And just so you can see our home design a little bit, we're going to walk through a few of our homes now.
So I touched on this a little bit before, talking about forming relationships with the Department of Social Services in our area. And Lynchburg's been blessed to really kind of embrace Isaiah 117 House. And initially we were opened to serve just the city. There's over 212 kids that are currently in care in the city of Lynchburg. Um, and that's part of our three-prong mission, right? To lighten that load for the caseworkers. And we accomplished it, as we've talked about already, in a variety of different ways. So each month on the 17th, we like to take DSS appreciation gifts down to Lynchburg. We also will host luncheons for them 3 times a year as well. They host meetings here at the house just to kind of get out of the office, out of that cubicle space, away from that fluorescent lighting. We provide those caregivers that are going to be there to assist the workers when the children are present. Because prior to Isaiah 117 House, when they had children coming into care, they would be there trying to scramble to find people to take care of the kids and amuse them while other people are trying to make phone calls. And in our surrounding counties, there may not be a lot of workers, so that is incredibly difficult for them to do. Lynchburg has more workers, so it makes it a little bit more approachable. We also assist them with event planning. So this year we're actually planning Lynchburg's National Adoption Day celebration for them, just to kind of lighten that load for them again. And we have found that we're often get to be a listening ear for them. They may come from some particularly difficult cases where they really need a moment to vent or just to take a minute away in a portion of the house where they can just talk and breathe and have some time before they're able to go back collected in front of the children again. We've been fortunate while serving Lynchburg that we've realized we've been able to serve the surrounding counties as well, and that need has existed and they've reached out to us. So we now also serve Amherst, Bedford, Nelson, Campbell, and Appomattox counties as well. There's over 189 kids in care in those surrounding counties combined. And so they're also able to utilize the house in the same way that the city of Lynchburg is. And we provide the same support for them as well, as far as appreciation gifts, assisting them with different efforts that they're doing, allowing them to host meetings and visitations here, whatever they might need to feel supported. Next, please. I failed to mention on that last one, but I should say one of the things that I think is really important about providing that support for those local DSS folks, if you don't know already, there's a huge turnover in that type of work. There's a lot of secondary trauma that comes with it. And we truly believe that if we can improve that morale, if we can improve the retention for those local social workers, that we are all better in our jobs when we've had time to stay there and to develop. And speaking to the director at Lynchburg, she has told us that their retention has improved since Isaiah 117 House came to Lynchburg, and that overall morale has improved as well. So we feel like that's an important piece. So Savannah touched on it earlier. We really believe in reducing the trauma on removal day, and part of that is that red door guest experience. So we make that a yes day for the kids that come to the house. Pretty much anything that they want to do, we're doing it. So in this, you can see some actual experiences from our home. So we've been down on the floor playing Legos or playing blocks. There was a whole war going on in one of these that you see here. We rarely ever win when they put us in competitions. It's almost always them that gets to win. And we try to make either a special meal or we will go out and order things for kids. One particular day we had a sibling group of 5, and of course no one could agree on where we were going to eat. So that's actually my arm in that picture, where I had gone to Chipotle, Buffalo Wild Wings, and McDonald's in order to make sure that every guest had exactly what they needed on that day. That's not something that a social worker could accomplish in an office or in a cubicle while also trying to find placement and do paperwork that's necessary. Next, please. So we like to share some stories from our home. And this particular one, this is our bathtub in our house. And on this day, we had 2 toddlers that came to the home, and they had been homeless for quite a while and living in a tent. And so their caseworker asked if we would be able to give them a bath prior to them heading to placement. And so we usually draw a bath filled with tons of bubbles to make sure that we've got a little privacy in there and it's extra fun for them. And these girls, we have a ton of toys, so we dumped those into the bathtub. And before I knew it, they had also dumped a bunch of other random toys in the tub. But we allowed that because we're all about just making whatever they want to happen, happen. And during that bath, the 3-year-old little girl looked up to the caregiver that was there and said, "I love you." And with tears in her eyes, she responded, "I love you too." And so we know that we are reducing that trauma on removal day. Next, please. I don't know why my poor slides are not looking good, but apologize for that. So another story from our open home. This is actually a foster care worker that you see pictured here. And it's hard to believe how many kids have entered care, even in Lynchburg, on their birthday. And obviously, that is an incredibly difficult day to be removed. And some of these kids have never had parties or had presents or had things like that happen for them. And so on this day, our caseworker was there and we had gotten a cake for the kiddo's birthday. And she was decorating that for us as we were running around and getting a bunch of presents and getting things wrapped and ready to go with party supplies so that we could have a birthday party for them on that day. Next, please. This story, I'll try not to get choked up on it, but it always gets me. And this is what happens on a removal day when a child's story, when a family story really hits local headlines. And so we had a sibling group of 5 whose story hit the news. It was shared all over social media. There was people weighing in with all sorts of opinions about what should or shouldn't happen or what had happened prior to these children coming into care. And it was a heavy and it was a deep story for our social workers, for these kids. And we were thankful that it's hard to place a sibling group of 5. And that's one of the things that our house can do is give those caseworkers time, right? Time to be able to not have to worry about where the kids are sleeping or where they're going to be while they find a family. And so they were able to find a family that was able to take all 5 kids because separating children, we've seen that happen here and it's hard. Hard on them, hard on us, hard on their caseworkers. So in this case, they just needed to stay for a weekend until this family was able to step up and take them all. And so we usually order out a lot and do things like that, as I mentioned earlier. And after a couple days of the kids being here, the oldest girl, who was 14, she asked if she could cook for us. And so we got her grocery list and one of our caregivers here that you see, Casey, went out and purchased everything that she wanted. And he was basically her sous chef that day, using the knives and stuff. And she had 2 little sous chefs here, and she had her music blaring in the kitchen, and she was dancing around as she was making the food. And her siblings were running around with other caregivers in the home wearing superhero costumes, and one was out on the swing. And it was just an amazing experience to know that when their whole world was falling apart, that we were able to piece a little piece of that back together and create some normalcy during an unpredictable time. And that young lady made the most amazing chicken parm and spaghetti and roasted vegetables and salad and fed our caseworkers and her siblings and our volunteers all together at a dining room table. Next, please. And so, I mean, we say it time and time again, but we're trying to reduce trauma for children on removal day. My own son, when he came into care, his removal was extremely traumatic for him in 2019 prior to Isaiah 117 house coming to Lynchburg. And so I know firsthand how hard that can be. So trauma can significantly affect brain development in children, leading to impulse control and poor emotional regulation. We know the risk that trauma has on health. We understand the risk that it has on mental health and physical health, addiction, domestic violence. All of those things are increased risks that happened with trauma. Children that are exposed to trauma are 2 to 3 times more likely to develop mental health issues such as depression and anxiety, which my own son has to suffer from. And so we can't reverse the things that have happened prior to those kids coming in care. But we can minimize the trauma that they are going to experience because they've come into care. And so one of the things that we do is we use trauma-informed care with the children that we serve. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in our training. But the integration of trauma-informed care into the foster care system is not only beneficial for addressing the complex needs of these children who have experienced trauma, but the evidence supports that these interventions lead to better outcomes. And so it's a critical component of effective foster care practices. Next, please. And so our training process for caregivers is uniform across all the houses. And so we approach it all the same way to make sure that we're providing quality care for the children and that they're in a safe and loving environment. And so that all begins with an application. It's very thorough that they fill out. We do background checks, including calling references that they've provided. We do a check through their local social services. It's the same background check that a foster family would need to go through as far as system wise. And then we also check their backgrounds through a private system as well. And then each caregiver goes through a 3-part training, and that is heavy on trauma-informed care, because as we mentioned, there is a lot of evidence that supports that that is the right choice for children who are entering foster care, and that support is crucial at that time. Next, please.
So, as Terry spoke about so well, our whole goal is to leave a lasting impact in our communities, in the system, with the children that we interact with, the families that we interact with, the whole scope of things. We want to change the way foster care begins because we believe that these vulnerable children and families deserve those resources that will help them better do the work that they are called to do in fostering and in kinship care. And ultimately, our desire is to just be that link in the chain that's going to help start the process of breaking cycles of trauma and addiction and just offering that support on their hardest day, showing them there's a community that loves them, supports them, and wants to see them succeed. And our whole motto is love, you're not alone. And you saw that on several of the slides, in the pictures, on our t-shirts. That's what we believe, love, you're not alone. And that's on everything that we say and do and how we present ourselves to the community and to the people that we feel like we're called to love. And we just believe it can reach past those first few days of foster care when they're in a home with us and reach all the way forward into creating a community that wraps around the ones of us who are in the most difficult situations with compassion. So you can go to the next slide. How we function as far as financially and with the yearly budget and support structure. So when a new home is being onboarded, we first start with 6 months of raising awareness. So when you're in expansion, you raise awareness in the community for that time. It's not a fundraising time, but it is the time when a lot of organizations do decide to start helping with the funding. We personally got a land donation during this time for us to build our house on, and we got a couple of grants, things like that came through. But the general purpose of that is just to raise awareness, make people aware of what's happening in their own backyards, of how the system currently works, and then to show them that we would love to offer an alternative in our own communities for that. So that's what the first 6 months are for. And then after that, the first employee is hired, and that is the location leader. And that person is the only full-time position at that location and in that home. And the location leader does the speaking engagements, moves things forward, and they ultimately try to get the home to the point of construction, breaking ground and starting a construction process. So in order to do that, you have to have $75,000 of funds raised to break ground on a property. And of course, that includes if you have a donation or if you need to purchase land. And the resource center that we work with does a really good job of helping us filter those and figure things out. So then when we get into that process and into construction, an additional position is hired called the care coordinator. That's a part-time position. And what they do is they work with the volunteers, they train the volunteers, and they help prepare them for serving in the home and organize all of that, because that's its own beast in itself that has to be dealt with. And you need a really great person to engage with your community. And then as a home is getting closer to opening its doors, they start to think about hiring a third position, which is another part-time support coordinator, who can work inside the home with the logistics of keeping the home organized, orderly, making sure repairs are done, anything like that that is needed within the home. The support coordinator handles, and they have a lot that's on their plate as well. So those three positions make the team, and that's location based and funding based to see if that's what your budget is going to be for. So far, that's what all of our Virginia homes have as their model. And with that budget, it is $175,000 to support the Isaiah 117 house every year. And that covers operations, the light bill, the heat bill, all of those things, as well as in the budget to lavishly love on a child on their removal day. So that is, we have said here in this sock buddy diagram that takes about $300 to help one guest a year. So that's also a part of our budget. And then we work with the community to bring that budget to be. And before a home can be opened, you have to have a fully funded first year's budget because we are a debt-free ministry in that way. So you have to have that $175,000 before you open your doors. And then once that happens, you can start serving and using the home for all these wonderful purposes that we've already spoken about. So we do provide funds in a few different ways. First of all, community support is number one from organizations, businesses, churches, local ministries, places like that. That's a great starting point for us, and that's a big part of our awareness and just engaging the community so you have that full wraparound and everybody's involved in the house and then has a valid stake in the home and wants to be a major part of the mission of that. And a big piece of that is our sock buddies. So our sock buddies are our monthly donors, and that can be set up online or given through a check mailed to the resource center for that specific location. But what we've noticed is $25 a month is our most popular sock buddy trend, but we have sock buddies from $5 a month all the way up to $1,000 a month, and everything in between. And it's just based on the organization, the person, but that is what really moves the needle forward in keeping our homes alive and thriving, because we have to function, with this budget. And so if you give $25 a month, you're helping to one guest a year. $50 a month is two guests a year. $300 a month is one guest a month. So that's 12 guests in a year. And that's kind of how you can break it down. And what we've noticed here in Russell is about a quarter to a third of our budget comes just from sock buddy support. So the need for those sock buddies and the impact that they have on keeping the ministry moving forward cannot be understated. It's huge. We also do fundraising events as an organization. We every year are required to host a golf tournament, and that helps bring in funds. And then we also host a luncheon every other year to help with fundraising. And we have our most successful fundraising event, and you might have seen it on social media or heard of it. It's called Lemonade Weekend. And Lemonade Weekend is this really incredible thing that these children in Carter County came up with. They just wanted to help with the first house. So they set up a lemonade stand to raise money, and they raised, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was thousands of dollars, and it was unbelievable. And that is where Lemonade Weekend was born. And still yet, with all of the stands and all of the folks that we have that set up lemonade stands, the children always bring in the most at their stands. It's the true heartbeat of Lemonade Weekend. Kids helping kids, which is really, really special. So Lemonade Weekend is our biggest fundraiser of the year for all of our locations, almost across the board there. And then we also incorporate other events throughout the year to try to help with the budget needs. We are doing in Russell and Washington, we're doing a comedy night out in Abingdon with a comedian from Nashville. We recently had a fall carnival. Lynchburg does a disc golf tournament. In Rockingham, Jenny, they just had a gala that was extremely successful. So there's lots of different things that we do on our end to move the needle forward, and that takes about a third of the budget. And then another third is that community giving or private grant funding. We're not state funded, but we are funded a lot of times through private grants like the OAA grant. And I did speak about it earlier, what a huge blessing that it's been for us. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. We did get a letter of approval from Tony McDowell. I have met Tony several times. He is your all's board director, executive director of the board there at the opioid abatement authority, and he's truly lovely. We have come he has come and viewed the home and looked at everything here in Russell and talked with us about it, and he has given us a letter of approval, and I'm just going to share the contents of that with you now. And we have it and we share that when we present to our local boards and things. But it says, the question has arisen as to whether the programs and efforts provided by Isaiah 117 House constitute an allowable use of opioid settlement funds based on the OAA gold standard policy. Evidence shows that children who enter the foster care system experience trauma that places them at high risk of developing behavioral health and substance use disorders. Isaiah 117 House intervenes at a crucial moment for children, providing physical and emotional support when these children are most vulnerable, thereby helping to prevent the kinds of trauma that contribute to the risk of addiction later in life. We view your work as a form of substance abuse prevention. For these reasons, we view the efforts of Isaiah 117 House as an allowable use of opioid settlement funds in compliance with the OAA's gold standard policy. And that's signed from Tony, which is just such a wonderful letter that he's provided us with to help us, like I said, move the needle forward and keep meeting our budget and keep doing the work that needs to be done day after day. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide.
So Acacia, we've got about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
And I think we have one question in the chat
Right.
so far, so you can go ahead and finish the slide.
Okay, sounds great. So some ways that you can help, you can learn more like you did today, help us spread the word through awareness. We all have monthly newsletters that you can sign up for, and there's an overall monthly newsletter you can sign up for. We ask for judges and different organizations to incorporate incorporate us into your best practices and your SOPs. We all have social medias, and there's a main social media. Bin buddies help provide those bins for the giving room. Sock buddies, as I spoke about, lots of great ways to help us get connected in communities and make people aware. Okay, you can go to the next slide. If you have questions about how to bring Isaiah 117 House to your area, you can go ahead and take a picture or a screenshot of this screen. I'll direct you to our state director, Demoria Walker, and she can explain more about the onboarding process. That starts with a volunteer expansion coordinator, and you have to submit a video to the resource center, and she can walk you through what that looks like for us here in Virginia. You can go to the next slide. And here's another screen that you can screenshot or take a picture of. This is all of our information, all of our email addresses. If you have any additional questions and want to get in touch with anybody in a specific area, here's your way to do that. And I think our next slide will take us to any questions.
So I started answering that question in the chat just because I was worried we'd run out of time. So yes, we do serve children who have been disrupted during a foster care placement and are awaiting placement in a higher level of care. So we have had some kids that have disrupted and had to wait for residential placement in our Lynchburg location before. And we welcome children with all different types of behavioral or mental health concerns. So the child placing agency is still who is in, I guess, responsible for the supervision of the child. Our caregivers are there to provide additional support, but ultimately the caseworkers need to be at the home at all times.
And the house can still be utilized as well when children are disrupted from foster care placements as well. Any kind of disruption, that house is open for them.
And as a reminder, these slides and the information from this webinar will be uploaded to our website and will also be sent to those that have registered for today.
So our average length of stay that we're seeing in Lynchburg, varies anywhere from 30 minutes up until 7 days. But most of the time, it depends on the agency. So Lynchburg is usually maybe like a 3 to 4 hour stay. Um, our surrounding counties that are smaller, like Nelson, tend to be here for 2 to 3 days during removal. So it just depends on the resources that they have as far as foster parents go. It kind of varies for us.
Okay, I'm reading the question about the connection for local DSS and government for OAA funding. Was DSS involved or was it local? It was our local board of supervisors here in Russell County. That is how we got the grant funding for the opioid abatement authority. Are you doing one-time funding? So far, we've done one-time funding here in Russell County because that funding took us through the opening of our home, and we should open early in the new year. And then after that, we're looking to hit the next grant cycle and reapply for a sustainability grant. And that's something that we have talked about with our local officials as well.
So I can tell you, as far as grant funding and stuff for Lynchburg, we have not participated in OAA funding to this point. All of ours has been largely local businesses, local donor funding, and that has sustained us over the years.
Yes, so each locality has their own funding, and they can also join in a cooperative partnership to collectively allocate the OAA funds to a project like Isaiah 117 House. So you can contact us here, your representative. I'm in the Eastern region, but we're all available to assist if you want more information on how to set that up.
Jenny, can you comment? Somebody had asked about funding in regards to Northern Virginia higher cost of living. So I feel like that would probably most apply to you.
So-
Yeah, I think Jenny went ahead and there's two of us.
Yeah. Sorry. You go ahead, Jenny.
Well, and again, I think it all just varies the cost of living. Again, that's when I reach out to our contact for the OOA, just to see what their funding looks like. Each funding in every area is different. And so just reaching out to your area, I think that'll help.
And so this, Allison, doesn't count as a placement. Our local social services don't count this as a placement because they're still in the custody of DSS. It just basically serves as what would have taken place in the office now takes place in the home, and that home purely exists for that time.
All right, I would just like to thank you all for sharing Isaiah 117 House with our community. And again, these slides and all the information will be uploaded to our website, and those registered will receive the information as well. So again, thank you ladies so much for the great information.